Hey guys, welcome back. It is Michael Marshawn, your Choose to Win coach, back with you again. We are in episode 6 of this 8-part series. And so far, we have covered the mental, spiritual, physical, and the family as of last week. And we will be getting into the personal next week. But this week, we are in the financial. And this is a big one because there has been a massive impact financially on people all over the country due to the pandemic. So it has caused a lot of people to reevaluate things and caused a lot of people to shift and change habits. And with that in mind, if you are joining us for the first time, I want you to go ahead and pause this video and go back to video 1 because that's going to have the assessment. It's going to have the overview of what we're going to be covering, but it will give you the actual link to download the assessment so you can fill it out and then you'll have a better idea. As we're going through these folks and as we're going through these components, it'll give you a better idea of what we are actually talking about. So, love starting off with this quote. This is a great quote. Money is not the most important thing, but it's relatively close to oxygen. That's by Zig Ziglar, of course. Great quote by Ziggy. So, without further ado, let's get into the content here. What will we be covering in episode 6? As you may or may not know, people run from pain more than they run to pleasure. So we're going to start off with the top 5 causes of bankruptcy. Then we're going to move into the top 5 financial goals of 2020. This is kind of the consensus of, based off different surveys, what people are most interested in accomplishing in the year 2020 financially. Are you heading towards dreams or disasters? The 10 components of the family spoke, and then 2 key actions you can take this week, because we don't want to just give you knowledge, we want to give you the ability to take some steps to change your life. So, of course, this is the financial spoke. We'll be covering those 10 components and top 5 causes of bankruptcy. So, the number one, far and away, this one came in at actually 66.5%. So, it's not even like it was close. But the number one reason that people file bankruptcy is medical bills. And that's a combination of being unable to pay medical bills because they have gotten so astronomical, as well as compounded by the fact that people a lot of times are unable to work when they're injured. So if you don't have a workman's comp or you don't have some kind of a disability insurance, then you're going to lose your paycheck, as well as have medical bills stacking up. And then the second one there is job loss. And this isn't always due to you being fired because you did something wrong. A lot of times people just get laid off. Most of the time without compensation, without any kind of severance package, without any real monetary help. But secondarily to that, if you do lose your job, a lot of people will lose their primary medical insurance with that. And if you've ever looked into COBRA plans, that is kind of a bridge plan of sorts, those are extremely expensive. So not only have you lost your job, you've lost your medical coverage, which again puts you at risk and can make a bad situation worse. And then poor or excess use of credit. Now, this is a big one because it's not just talking about credit cards. It's also talking about, installment loans, car loans, student loans. A lot of people have taken home equity loans out and kind of treat their house like a piggy bank in a sense. So that's a number 3 leading cause of bankruptcy. Divorce and separation. Again, this is a big one because the divorce rates and the separation rates within the pandemic, since the pandemic started, have gone up significantly. So before you even get to the point that you guys are actually divorced, just the legal fees alone for many people can be astronomical. Once you get past the legal fees, you still have things like splitting marital assets. So half 50-50 in most cases. And then there's child support, alimony. Then you have to reestablish your household. So there's many, many things that can compound and basically leave you to the point where you have no option but to file bankruptcy. And then unexpected expenses. Now, this isn't talking about the car breaking down. I'm talking about unexpected expenses in the forms of catastrophes. So something like a natural disaster. So that could be flooding, it could be a hurricane, it could be a tornado. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't even realize that they need additional coverage. So the first time that they realize that is when they go to file a claim because their house was flooded or it was knocked down because of a tornado or a hurricane. And that is a sad realization and something that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But unfortunately, that is a preventable thing. You do have to have an additional policy, and it can be a little bit more expensive, but it is well worth having in place in case something like that happens. So those are the top 5 reasons for bankruptcy. And then the top 5 financial goals. Again, this is kind of the consensus list. So get on a written budget. Save an emergency fund. This doesn't have to be an extensive emergency fund. It can be something as simple as $1,000. Pay off credit card debt. Again, the average household right now has about $7,000 in credit card debt. Save for retirement and then pay down your other debt. And again, those are the top 5 things that people said they would like to accomplish in 2021 when it comes to financial goals. And then here, are you heading towards dreams or disasters? So the reality is that most people in America live pretty comfortably and they don't actually get serious about their finances. They don't get serious about making changes until they're facing a disaster. And the sad reality, guys, is that by the time you've hit that point, it's too late. There's not a lot that you can do when you're facing a disaster to go ahead and make things back to the way they were. So the time to plan for that is before. And a large part of that is going to be working towards something because if you're just standing still, you're essentially just waiting for a disaster to find you. So moving forward, being intentional and working towards your dreams is going to put you on a much better path than just standing still. And again, these are the 10 components, and I'm going to break these down a little further in the next slide, but I want you to look at them through the lens of dreams versus disasters. So everything has kind of a flow. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and the end. And finances and planning and goal setting with finances is no different. So the very first thing you got to do with finances and with your financial future is get your priorities straight, get proper priorities. Next, you have to have a money and savings. This doesn't have to be anything crazy. This is an emergency fund we're talking about, $1,000. Ideally, if you can get up to 3 to 6 months of expenses, that would be the best case scenario. But for just starting out, this is the beginning, get $1,000 in savings. And then having adequate insurance. Now, this is talking about medical insurance. That could be your primary medical insurance where you go to see the doctor. It could be your long-term or your short-term disability insurance. Things like life insurance. What happens to your kids or your family if you pass away? How are they going to maintain the lifestyle that they've become accustomed to if you're not there to provide for them? And then again, the middle. So your earnings. How much money do you make every month? Based off how much money do you make, are you putting that money into a budget? And if you have a budget, are you sticking to it and living within your income there? Or do you go out and do you make impulse purchases? And again, this is where that big why, that big dream comes in. Because if you're moving towards a dream and the dream is big enough, your why is big enough, then when the urge to make those impulse purchases comes along, it's going to be much easier to say no. And then financial statements. Do you have a clear picture on where all your money's going? That's the middle. Towards the end here, debt free. Now, Dave Ramsey defines debt free in most situations as everything but the house. So have you paid off all your credit card debt, all your student loan debt, your car debt, your consumer debt of whatever other kind you might have? Are you investing in your future? Now, the standard number that most financial advisors use is put 20% of your take home pay into a retirement account of some sort, whether that's a Roth IRA, whether that's just investing in your 401k, whatever it looks like for you. Be intentional with that investing. And again, guys, there's a flow and there's a rhythm to these things. So if you don't even have $1,000 in savings, then it probably doesn't make sense to go put 20% of your take home pay into investments, because if something small happens, you're not going to be able to cover it because you have no money. So do the things in order, be intentional with them, and as you're doing this, keep your big picture, your big why in mind, because that is going to give you the grit and that is going to give you the ability to persevere and grind when things get tough. So final thoughts. Again, it's ending with this quote because I just really love it. The fastest way to success is to replace bad habits with good ones. Now, again, we're looking for small changes here. This isn't about revamping your whole life, and that's why I tried to break it down into more manageable steps. And with that in mind, I want you guys to consider 2 things here. What is your big why behind financial success? What is the big dream that you have? So put another way, if money was no object, like you could do anything you wanted and money was no object, what would you do? That will probably give you a clearer picture on what your big why is. So if you don't know that, then that's where I want you to start, right there. If you do know that, then I want you to clearly hone in and move on to step 2. And the second thing we want to do here is, so I want you to go through the beginning, the middle, and the end. Go through that list and find where you're at in terms of right now. And then I want you to take the next step. I want you to write down your goal, whatever it is for you, wherever you fall on that list. If you're at the very beginning, you just kind of getting clear priorities, then for you, that next step is going to be $1,000 in savings. What I want you to do is wherever you fall on that, write down that goal, $1,000 in savings, 20% towards retirement, somewhere in between. And I want you to put a date next to it. So you're doing two things here. You're committing to it in writing and you're giving yourself a timeline. Now, once you've done those two things, you've made a huge step towards actually following through because you've committed in writing and now you can backtrack and build out a timeline to complete that goal in the time that you have set for yourself. So that's all we got for today, guys. I know that was kind of a lot of information. But just want to highlight that the number one leading cause of bankruptcy is medical bills. So if you get nothing else out of this video, make sure you have adequate medical coverage. Look into long-term disability insurance, look into short-term disability insurance, make sure you have enough life insurance. Think about those things now because by the time you need them, it's going to be too late. So if you guys are watching this video and again, you're like, okay, wow, I'm a little overwhelmed now. I don't even know where to start. I am not a financial advisor, but I do know financial advisors. If you just want a little more help in general, one of my favorite things to do is to do strategy sessions and discovery calls with people. And just to help them take a clear, deep dive into their why and finding their why and what really drives them. And that is going to be a key component wherever you're at in this stage, wherever you're at in life, because that is going to give you a clear direction when you move forward. So I do have a limited number of these. They are complimentary, but I do have a limited number of these. And unfortunately, my calendar has started filling up pretty fast recently. So if you are interested, please don't let that stop you. I want you to reach out to me and we will set up and we'll get you into my next available slot. But I can't do anything until you guys make the first move. I want you to reach out to me and take that next step. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Come back next week and join us for the personal spoke. It's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it.